Outriders is the upcoming 1 to 3 person co-op game from People Can Fly, and when you're playing it, you'll be able to fly too, in a literal hurricane of rocks before smashing into the ground. Or you can carve through enemies with a ghostly dagger, or ignite your foes into living, scorching bombs that explode rather memorably. I got hands-on with Outriders a while back and thought I'd let you know just what I liked about it, as well as what I didn't. But first, let us get you up to speed real quick on what Outriders is about. Set on the chaotic planet of Enoch, you play an Outrider, a mercenary sent to prepare Enoch for colonists. During an expedition gone wrong, you were mutated by a mysterious force called the Anomaly. It twisted your DNA to change you into one of 3 classes, each with their own elemental powers: the ghostly Trickster, the fiery Pyromancer, and the rocky Devastator. It's up to you to find the mysterious signal that drew you to the Anomaly in the first place, while also helping out the bedraggled survivors of the failed colonization of Enoch. Come September 2020, you'll be able to get your hands on Outriders on current and next-gen consoles. Anyway, here's 7 things we liked about Outriders and 5 we didn't. First up, and most important for a co-op game, the abilities of the 3 different classes combine really well. Devastators have this rock armor ability which lets them tank, encouraging you to draw fire from most enemies, while the Trickster and Pyromancer, who are squishier than the Devastators, deal with stragglers. Plus, Devastators are rewarded for getting up close and personal, as killing someone at close range heals them a small amount. When things get a bit too spicy for your group, Tricksters come in handy. I found that the best way to play a Trickster was to teleport behind a group of enemies, say it's nothing personal, kid, slash them with a blade, and then encase those poor fools in a bubble shield. Inside the shield, enemies and their bullets move much more slowly, giving you and your friends ample time to finish them off and have a quick breather. I personally think that Pyromancers are the weakest of the 3 classes. I'll be coming back to that later on, but in a group they're decent at hoovering up enemies that have strayed from the pack. Outriders works best when you and 2 buds play different classes, and when that synergy hits just right, it's glorious. As a whole, Outriders looks great. The Valley of Death gave me shivers, as dear God it does not hold back on the violence or hanging bodies, which was a far cry from the lush opening area. Explore the main settlement and you'll find nifty little details like a fist fight complete with the cheering audience, and cryo containers being used as fridges. Plus there's NPCs getting tangled up in quite a bit of trouble further on. Out in the combat areas there's less stuff to notice, but the hub itself looks mighty fine indeed. The fighting. Oh God, the fighting. Although the variety leaves something to be desired, what really helps it along is the ample opportunity to take cover and plan out your assault. Switching to different cover is smooth and thankfully not fiddly at all, and the amount of enemies thrown at you means that you're heartily encouraged to take advantage of those waist-high walls whenever you can. Although it's tempting to keep your distance in battle, during the more intense boss fights you're able to interrupt boss attacks with melee attacks, which switch up the pace of combat as you have to constantly evaluate whether you can get in and out of the boss's personal space before your health takes an almighty hit. Oh, and the different types of melee attacks are fun too. Fun in a magic looks good decapitating things kind of way. Enoch has many mysteries, but the biggest one is the Anomaly. That's the entity, or being, or substance, or whatever the hell it is, that turned you into either a Pyromancer, Devastator, or Trickster in the first place. Figuring out the exact nature of the Anomaly looks like it's going to be at the centre of Outriders, especially as you're not the only one that's been turned into something twisted and powerful. Other people touched by the Anomaly inhabit Enoch, caught up in their own wars that, apparently, are far above the squabbles of ordinary humans. From my experience playing Outriders, they treated me like a child, remaining tight-lipped about why their battle was more important than the struggling colonists. Whether Outriders delivers story-wise remains to be seen, but the first few hints of the wider tale have certainly intrigued me so far. There are no loot boxes in Outriders. There is, and I quote, a full, complete experience out of the box, according to Bartosz Kmita, creative director at People Can Fly. So, yeah, I definitely like that. In character creation, you select your body type, not gender. I like that too. Your Outriders' special abilities bring me so much joy. Visible from way across the battlefield when you play with friends, they're in your face and don't hold back. Whether that's the fire of the Pyromancer lighting up enemies like a jack-o'-lantern, the Trickster's mysterious blue bubble shield, or just flinging around the earth itself as a Devastator. Having the attacks of each class so immediately recognisable from a distance works well in co-op, as it signals that it's time to take advantage of the momentary disarray enemies have been thrown into. I found myself running in from afar to back up my team with some covering fire, or finish off foes as a chunk of their health had been taken off by the attacks. It also helps that seeing your enemies explode in various different ways is rather fun too. Some, like the Trickster's teleport ability or the Devastator's flying rock power, lets you disrupt the flow of battle. Both those powers let you get behind enemy lines, giving your allies a break from enemy fire as they turn their sights on you, which is very handy when the more powerful enemies show up to the party. And now, onto the things that I didn't like as much. Outriders brands itself as a 1 to 3 player game, but playing solo is hard. Taking on waves of bandits is fine as long as you don't mind ample kiting and playing it on the safe side, even as the Devastator, but when it comes to bosses, you don't stand a chance alone. Even taking down a boss with one other player was on the tricky side, as the bosses don't move around too much. What that means is that if interrupting one of their attacks didn't go quite to plan and you find yourself down, it can be a while before your teammate revives you, making some fights a little tedious. Speaking of Outriders bosses, they get repetitive. While they have a decent variety of attacks, the stuff they shout during combat can grate after a while. I know. I can't believe I'm saying this, but can you go back to bellowing in pain, please? Mini-bosses and bosses don't change much during your battles with them either. There's no switch in fighting style once their health bar drops to a certain level, and no new attack that only appears when they get truly desperate. As these big bads have quite large health bars, with less than 3 players, boss battles can get tiresome. Not ideal. Outriders maps are pretty basic. You travel out to locations from a hub, yet unfortunately, in comparison to the city, the combat areas are dry. I ran into one side quest during my main quest, but apart from that NPC and a bunch of enemies, there's very little that fleshes out the area as an active war zone. Which means that there's no incentive to explore. It's a shame, as the beginning area showed how dynamic these combat zones could be, with trucks pulling things out of the way and NPCs milling about. Maybe later in the game combat zones get a bit more interesting, but from what I saw, they felt stale. Oh boy, there is a lot of exposition, and Outriders shoves it in your face. Rather than including backstory in notes, newspapers, or NPCs' conversations about what happened on Earth to get you this far, other characters tell you what happened with the subtlety of a bull in a china shop. It's all flung on you as soon as the game starts too, which becomes overwhelming. Plus, all this exposition happens in cutscenes, so you can't just walk away. Lastly, let me talk about the Pyromancer. Whereas with the Trickster and the Devastator you can hold your own in both co-op and solo, the Pyromancer struggles. That's mainly because of its healing ability. See, with the Trickster and the Devastator you heal a small amount when you kill an enemy in close quarters. But with the Pyromancer, you only heal when you kill enemies you've marked. As a result, it's a lot easier to find yourself low on HP if you don't keep marking enemies, which makes healing a bit more convoluted than with the other classes. I found that the Pyromancer's abilities weren't as inventive as the Trickster and the Devastator either. Sure, having enemies explode into lava looks awesome, but there wasn't any particular power that really stood out. I guess that's one of the risks of making a class an all-rounder, but it still remains a shame. You do get more abilities as you level up, so Pyromancers might shine at later levels, but from what I played, I just didn't find the Pyromancer class as fun as the Trickster or Devastator. And that's 7 things we liked about Outriders and 5 things we didn't. We release a new video every single day, so there's always something to watch. Hit like if you enjoyed seeing multiple baddies explode in this video, and subscribe to Eurogamer for many more videos about gaming. See you next time.